Hey everybody, Zatman here from Team Dignitas. I've just got inspired to start a new YouTube series. I think I'm going to call it State of Balance, or maybe State of the Gods, I'll probably call it, because I want to talk about gods, whether they need a nerf or a buff, and also how they fit in the meta right now, to give my viewers a better understanding of the game, as well as how each god fits into the meta currently. Okay, so let's start out here. This is probably going to be a 2 or 3 part series since there's so many gods, and I'm probably going to try to talk in depth about each one. I'm going to skip Arachne because she's new, still needs testing. I also haven't played her either, so I'm just going to skip her. Let's go straight into the old Alquang, now Kukulkan. I think Kukulkan's pretty balanced right now. The reason why he's so highly picked and fits so well in the meta is because of mid-harpies, and I'll explain. Basically, right now, the first mid-harpy fight is one of the most important fights in the game. And how do you win the mid-harpy fight, right? You either kill the enemy god or you just get in there and hog, right? However, good teams are going to be there contesting you, so it's very hard to just get in and hog and get out without being engaged on. So now what Kukulkan brings that, let's say, Agni doesn't bring, or let's see, who are the, or Giannis or something like that, or even Zanquay, is that he has 100 to 0 burst potential with his ultimate. So you have someone that can set it up, let's say a Thor ult or stun, Mercury pull. Who else has a setup? Let's see. So I'm just doing this on top of my head because while it's fresh, you know, Freya Whoop, you know, anything like that that can set up a guaranteed Kukulkan ult will win you that mid-harpy fight. And I also have another issue with Kukulkan and why he's so potent right now in the meta is that not only does he have the 100 to 0 burst that is needed and required to win the mid-harpy fight, he also has some of the best lane clear in the game. So he can push without really having to worry about clearing the wave because he has such potent wave clear, and then rotate to mid-harpies easily, as well as having the best mid-harpy presence with his ultimate and tornado. So that's one of the reasons why he's so potent right now in the meta, and I think he's pretty balanced in terms of his skills overall. But the reason why he's picked so often is because of his kit and how it fits in the meta right now. Next god, Odin. I haven't really tried him new yet. Probably still needs a little more testing, so I'll try him when he's available in ranked, etc. Let's go on to Agni. Agni has seen a pretty big downfall. Not that many picks, and when he does get picked, he doesn't win too often. And one of the reasons is what I stated is the current meta right now and how important these early mid-harpy fights are. Agni he does have a lot of damage, however, he doesn't have that 100 to 0 instant kill potential that the Alquang does. And also, or the Kukulkan does. And also, his wave clear isn't the most reliable. He has to kind of, you know, once the junglers leave the solo lane, he can't really dash to clear the wave, you know, very easily like he would at, let's say, level 1 through 3. So he has to use a bomb and his 2, and he won't necessarily have all his bombs up for the mid-harpy fight, as well he's probably taking poke in the early game because he has to dash to clear the wave. So that's why he's seen a pretty big downfall, is because he's not that strong as, let's say, Kukulkan in the early mid-harpy fights. However, later on in the game, I think he's one of the strongest mid-gods. But that early game is just too important right now in the meta. So that's why you don't see him picked as often as, let's say, Ra or Alquang mid. Okay, we'll go to AMC. AMC, he actually has a good kit, and he's very lane dominant. However, he just doesn't fit into this meta. Now I'm going to talk about how he fit in the old meta when there was all warriors. Okay, so his kit, he doesn't have any CC immunity like, let's say, Artemis does. Right, he only has his hives for speed and a slow on his honey, which only lasts, which I think they nerfed it to 4 seconds now, from 6, right? So he worked very well in the warrior meta, like in the launch tournament, he was a very potent pick, because warriors didn't really have that much hard CC, right? Nowadays, it's the guardian meta who they have tons of CC. Geb has a knockup, a slow, and he has a AoE stun on his ult. Athena has a taunt, a slow, right? So all this like strong CC that will make you waste your beads, even if the team fight hasn't even started yet. She could just run up, taunt you, or, you know, Geb can just knock you up, and everyone can just dive on you and kill you instantly. Because the only thing you have are beads which are easily blown, and sprint and a slow that gets countered by another sprint. So this is why he's not picked, is because with a coordinated team, he's so easily focused down in a team fight. Whereas if you have Apollo, you can mez, you can dash out, you can ulti out. Uller, you have a jump, stun. On her, you have a jump, knockback, slow, AoE slow, and things of that nature, right? So that's why you don't see him using comp pick. He has a very strong kit, and if he gets ahead, he can bully the crap out of his lane. But right now, it's the Guardian meta. And also, I forgot to mention, and another reason why you can rush him down is because everyone picks Assassins now. It's the Assassin meta, too. Assassin Guardian meta, opposed to before where it was just the Warrior meta. Back when there was a Warrior meta, you never see Loki picks or any Assassin picks because the Warriors would just destroy the Assassins so easily. But now, Assassin Guardians can so easily kill a god without an escape, especially a squishy hunter like a Muzakab who has no CC immunity other than his beads. Okay, so there's a Muzakab. That's why he's not picked. Maybe ways to buff him a little bit in this meta would be to make his Hive a 2-hit kill instead of a 1-hit kill, or you can decrease the cooldown on the Hive because that is his main mobility. That's kind of like his jump. So maybe one of those two changes can make him, be able to survive a bit longer in team fights. Or I think they can increase the duration of his slow on his honey. That might help as well. Or increase the damage a little bit. Either one I think will help him immensely in this meta, but we'll have to see. Okay, moving on from a Muzakab, Honor, he's kind of a niche pick. He kind of counters some gods. He's like very lane dominant. But the reason why you don't see him, one, his 1-2 combo is hard to land. Two, he doesn't have any attack steroid other than his pillar, which isn't really that potent. So that's one of the main reasons why he's not picked. He just doesn't have a steroid. Apollo has his protections as well as his passive as a steroid. Artemis has her passive crit and attack speed steroid. Rom has 2 kinds of steroids, a damage and an attack speed steroid. Shablanke has a damage steroid, but you don't see him anyway. And the other viable pick is Uller, who has natural attack speed gain off his ult. Right? So obviously they will be able to outbox the Honor late game because their steroid will be maxed, and Honor will just be sitting there with his spear. So that's one of the reasons why you don't pick him. However, he's still a strong pick in my opinion. I think he's still viable. I don't think he really needs to be changed at all. If you want to shut down the enemy hunter, I think Anher's a really good pick. However, just know you're not going to carry as hard as the other hunter in the late game, so it's kind of a risk. If you don't dominate your lane early mid, you're going to get outclassed by the enemy hunter late game. Okay, so that's Anher for me. Anubis, again, he kind of has the same issue as a Muzakab. No mobility. All his skills require him to be stationary. Well, his main damaging skills, his ultimate and his 1. So he can easily be bursted by the Assassin meta right now. As well, he can easily be CC'd out of his 1, which is his main damage besides his ult. Ways to fix him. I think there's a couple ways to fix him. One, you can nerf his damage on his 1 and then make it mobile, which I think would be the best way to fix Anubis actually right now. Just make his 1 mobile and just decrease the damage by a lot because it does so much damage. Other than that, I mean, he does his job. Like he can burst people down really quickly. But again, his mobility is a problem. You can't be a glass cannon mage and then be stationary for most of your abilities. You could also build a team comp around Anubis, like keep the Anubis alive, blah blah blah. But then again, his 1 is still short range, so to get the damage off, you still have to be, near everybody. Also, I don't think a lot of people practice with him in team comps, so maybe there are like really potent team comps with Anubis that can work, but we don't know him yet. But a quick little fix would probably make his 1 mobile and decrease the damage by a lot. Okay, Aphrodite, she's hit or miss in terms of picks. She used to be always banned and picked, but now people have Spartan up, they get Weakening, they get Divine Ruin, etc., etc. So she's still a good pick. If you want to protect somebody, if you want to protect a Mercury or Shaket or an AD carry, if you want to really have that person carry or that god carry, you'll pick an Aphrodite to just stay linked to him late game team fights and just try to keep him alive. She basically has 2 Aegises. Her Undying Love as well if she builds her own Aegis, which is really good. She has a ton of damage with her Lovebirds and Back Off. They do a lot of damage, as well as movement speed increase. And movement speed is one of the most important stats, or what do they call it? Yeah, I guess I'll just call it a stat in the game, because the game is all skill shots, and the faster you are, the harder you are to hit. So if you have that hyper carry that you want to rely on heavily, Aphrodite is a really good pick to keep them alive and have them carry really hard. As well as she has a pretty good laning phase because she has a really good clear as well. So I really wouldn't change her at all. I think she's in a pretty good spot right now. And there's many items to counter her as well. Let's see. Apollo. Okay. Like, Apollo, he has been really strong throughout his career. And the reason being is that his passive is very potent for dueling. But not only that, his Serenade, to me, is one of his biggest things why he's so strong. Gives him 50 protections at max rank. Plus his passive attack speed makes him almost impossible to duel in the early, mid, or late game. So I think they should nerf his Serenade protections by half. This will still give him his dueling prowess, but however not make him so impossible to duel for other hunters. 50 protections is a lot. Imagine if he has 50 prot from his Serenade and gets Aegis 3. He probably take no damage. Another thing is why he's so potent is because of the meta. Again, like I said, the early mid heartbeat fights are so crucial in this game right now in the meta, and that Apollo can clear the wave and keep his enemy hunter in the lane and rotate at any given moment almost instantly to the mid heartbeat fight makes him so viable in this current meta. And one of the ways they can nerf that is make the mana cost very high at level 1 and then decrease the mana as you level his ult when his ult becomes less and less important. However, in the early game and mid game, his ultimate rotations are so potent and will turn around a team fight, help the Apollo snowball on top of his crazy protections and outdueling capabilities. So I think level 1, level 2, make the mana really high, make it a, you'll have to invest a lot to use that all in the early game. And then decrease the mana later on in the game when it becomes less important. And I think that's one good way they could balance Apollo out without, making him unplayable. Let's see. Next god is Ares. What this god lacks that others don't is that, one, he doesn't have an escape. Geb and Athena, they both have escapes. However, what's his strength is that he does a ton of damage, right? But he has no push, and early game push is very important. Because why is early game push important? Well, because the tower takes away your gold if it gets hit. So if you let yourself get pushed to the tower, you're going to be losing gold, right? So that's why people don't play Ares as much, or other supports that don't push as hard, because they don't want to get bullied in the early game and lose out on the gold and become behind and maybe snowball, against them. So one way I would suggest to fix Ares to make him more viable in the meta is let him three chain the creeps. This will help his push, and it doesn't need to do the dot damage on the creeps, but let him at least use it 3 times on the creeps to at least help his push a little bit, make him a bit more viable in the meta. Other than that, I think his kit's pretty strong. And the only thing he really heavily lacks is push. So if they allow, Ares to 3 chain the creeps, I think that'd be pretty good. Let's see. And also, not allowing the dot damage on the creeps, just the flat damage, 3 chains flat damage. Plus his 3 will give him pretty good clear. Okay, let's see. Artemis. Artemis kind of has the same problem as Muzakab right now. She has mobility in terms of movement speed, but she just doesn't have a really good escape. One thing that sets her apart from Muzakab is that she has another set of beads, basically her boar, and she has a lot of hard CC. The boar stuns, the trap roots. Muzakab only has a slow and a cripple, none of which can hard CC the enemy god in place enough time for you to escape. So that's one reason why she's a bit more potent in this meta, because she can survive longer. However, she's still not picked because assassins can still one-shot her. She can use her ult, her boar, however, they could just beads. She can sprint, they'll sprint, and then they'll just kill her instantly before she can even do anything. The hurt kit is great. Like, there's nothing they can really do. It's just the meta right now that stationary hunters cannot survive the assassin guardian meta right now. When the meta shifts a little bit, maybe you'll see her make a comeback. So I really wouldn't change anything in her kit because her kit's very strong. Moving on, Athena. Athena is one of the top 2 supports, as you can see from at least games played in the SPL, her and Geb. What makes her so strong? She has a huge AoE taunt that will blow actives, blow Magi's blessings very easily and safely. 2, she has an escape, which makes her a very safe pick. And 3, she can rotate anywhere around the map instantly with her Defender of Olympus. This makes ganks so potent because so many times, how many times have you guys had a gank and they survive with this much HP? Well, imagine if you always had an Athena ulti to back you up. That's pretty much guaranteed kills. So this is why she's very potent. She helps with the ganks, as well as if she leaves her enemy, if she leaves her friendly hunter in lane, she's technically always still there because she can always ulti. So in the back of the enemy hunter's mind, he's like, I can't really all in him because I know he has Athena ult waiting. So that alone will make them play passive without Athena even being in lane, which is another reason why she's such a strong pick. And you always want to try to give your hunter solo farm an XP so he can get ahead. So that's why she's really potent. Is she OP? You know, that begs to differ. I think maybe one change to make her a little less potent would be increasing the cooldown on her ultimate. Instead of just a flat 90, maybe make it 120. So she doesn't have it up all the time. Or just less of the time. But that's pretty much it. Let's move on to Bacchus. Bacchus, I think, is one of the most underrated supports. His passive is extremely strong. He takes less damage the more drunk he is, as well as he gains magical power. His belly flop is one of the best setups in the game. AoE knockup, super strong if used correctly. And then he also has a stun and healing reduction on his Belch of the Gods. Super strong. His ultimate, again, if you use that in a team fight, a good ultimate, it's going to be very hard for the enemy to hit their skill shots, as well as it does a ton of damage too. The one thing he lacks is why he's not picked as much as, let's say, Geb and Athena, is his early game clear is not that strong. The Belch of the Gods doesn't do a lot of damage early. The only thing that he could do to clear is belly flop. So if your hunter can group up the creeps so he could belly flop, then you have pretty good clear. However, 9 times out of 10, you're the one being pressured on, so your hunter cannot group up the creeps for the belly flop clear. So you get bullied in lane, the creeps go to your tower, you lose gold. And since the early game is so important in this game, Bacchus isn't picked as much. However, he could be paired with gods like Anher, who have extremely strong clear, or even a Muz and Cobb, who have extremely strong clear on their own, and it will make Bacchus' laning phase a lot more potent and bearable, and see him through to the mid game where he really shines. I wouldn't change him. It's just how the meta is right now. If the meta shifts, he could be extremely viable. His kit is amazing. Next god is Bakasura. I think Bakasura is another very underrated god. He is extremely potent in doing what he does. I think you don't build this god as a 100-0 or like an assassin god. How you build him is kind of how you build Freya, in my opinion. His strong suit is his Butcher Blades, 70 true damage at max rank. I think the more you hit the true damage, the more potent he is. And in my opinion, because he has to be up in your face, you should build him more Bruisery, Witchblade, maybe even a Soul Eater, attack speed, defensive items to survive, and just let your true damage go to work for you. And that way, I think he can just go in there with his ult, get as much true damage as possible. Maybe not 100-0 someone, but I don't think that's his role, in my opinion. In my opinion, I think he's just there to just take a whole bunch of people out of the fight, do damage that they cannot avoid because they're crippled in his ultimate, and in that way take multiple gods out of a team fight and help you win that team fight. So I think attack speed and survival items are really potent on Bakasura, as well as maybe a Chin Size or an Executioner for that bit of extra damage. So I wouldn't change his kit. I believe he's more potent in the solo lane than he is in the jungle. And he should be built for more survivability than flat out damage. Survivability and attack speed than flat out, you know, physical damage. Let's move on to Bastet. Bastet, another underrated god. One reason she's not picked as much is, again, the early mid-Harvey fights. You want to set up your big 100-0 mid lane mage ultimates in the mid-Harvey fights. Bastet doesn't have a setup, doesn't have a hard CC like Mercury, like Loki, like Thor. And this is one of the reasons why you don't see her picked. So, however, one playstyle you can play her is just never go for the contested side of the Harpies. Just jump in to the side that they don't have a lot of people contesting. Get in there, hog it, get out. And then scale well into the mid-game. Mid-game, she really shines when she has levels. Her natural scaling on her abilities is very high with Pounce and Razor Whip. She can burst down a lot of mages. I think she's an excellent counter to Ra, who's a highly picked god right now, as well as just other mages that don't have escapes. She can easily gank them. The cats tank most of the damage. And if you want to play to not contest mid-Harpies and try to just get your one side mid-Harpy and get out and have a really strong mid-game, I think Bastet's a really strong pick if you're going for that kind of playstyle. But again, one reason why she's not picked is because her early mid-Harpy fights aren't as strong as, let's say, Mercury's, Thor's, or Loki's, who can set up the 100-0 ultimate from your mid-mage. I did 3 rows, basically. I guess I'll just stop here. I don't want to make the video too long, because it's just basically me talking. I hope you found this video helpful in any way, and, you know, leave feedback. You know, we can talk about what I said. Don't take what I said to be the end-all, be-all. You know, I could be wrong, but this is just my opinions on the top of my head. Like, I'm looking at the god, and whatever comes to mind, I say, because that's my natural reaction to the god. I didn't plan any of this out. This is just raw, what I think on the top of my head of the god. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.